Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a fitted sleeve and body hexi-cardi. You can make it as an open top cardigan, or you can turn it into a sweater or a jumper by just closing the front of it as well and adding a neckline ribbon. For my cardigan I'm using 6mm crochet hook and bulky yarn, but you can use any type of yarn and a suitable hook for this project because it's made to measure. So let's make a slip knot and chain 4, and then if you now slip stitch into your very first chain, it will create a circle and you can make your first round of stitches inside this circle. This is one way of starting this project, or you can start it with a magic circle. But if you're doing a magic circle, I would do a double magic circle, so it will be a bit stronger than your regular one round magic circle, and we'll make all of the first round inside this magic circle. So let's chain 3 first, and then we're going to make a double crochet stitch into this circle, and then make another double crochet into the circle as well. And after we've done this, this is your first cluster. We're going to chain 2 and we're going to make 3 more double crochet stitches, one right after another, and everything is made into this circle, and that is your second cluster. One cluster is 3 double crochet stitches together, then chain 2 and make another cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. We need 6 of these in total, so let's just keep working. And if you were to work into your circle you did with your chains, it's the same, exactly the same pattern. You're just making these stitches inside that little space what you created when you slip stitched your chain 4 together. Chain 2 again and another cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. And let's just count them to make sure that we have got the right amount. We have made 6 clusters, and now it's time to close your magic circle. So let's just do that first, but obviously if you made that chain 4 circle, you don't have to do this bit because you already got a small circle. And now we're going to finish off this round. So instead of doing your chain 2 like you did in between every cluster, we're going to yarn around your hook and go in top of that chain 3 from the beginning, and then pull up a loop and then pull through all 3 loops in your hook, and that's a half a double crochet stitch, and that will finish off your round and you end up in a correct place to start your next round. You have an option to start each round by making a chain 3 and counting that as a double crochet stitch, or you can make a stacked single crochet and count that as your double crochet. So you make 1 single crochet first, and then you make another on the top of it through the sideways bar on that stitch, and that's called a stacked single crochet, and that can be counted as a double crochet stitch at the beginning of your round. And then we're going to make another 2 double crochet stitches to make our first cluster, and we're going to build into each of these corner spaces next round of corner spaces. Find your next chain 2 space from round 1 and go straight into there, making your cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. Once you've done that, make chain 2 and into the same chain 2 space we're going to make another cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. and that is a corner space. So it creates these tips and 90-degree corners which you need for this cardigan. So that will be the first corner made. We're now going to move into the next chain 2 space, and so on. We're going to make into each space cluster of 3 double crochet stitches, followed by chain 2, followed by 3 double crochet stitches, all the way until the end. You can pause your video here and come back when you have gone all the way around, making 3 double crochet stitches, chain 2, and another 3 double crochet stitches into each of these chain 2 spaces from the previous round. Once you've gone all the way around and you have made 5 new corners, you get back to that place where you started from, and you're going to have to finish that very first corner by adding another 3 double crochet stitches into this space where you started from, and then we're going to do a half a double crochet stitch to finish off the round, and we're doing this onto the top of that stacked single crochet from when you started the round, and just check that you have got 6 new corners made. We're starting a new round with a stacked single crochet again. Of course, you can replace that with chain 3 or just a normal standing double crochet if that's what you prefer to do. And going to make another 2 double crochet stitches into the same space. And the reason why we're starting our rounds with half a corner space is so that when you join them together at the end, you end up in the correct place to start your next round. For this round, we are not just creating corners, we also have a side to work into. So this will be the side space with no chains in between. So what we're doing there is we're just going to make 3 double crochet stitches into this space between 2 clusters from the round below, and then once we've done that, you're working into that corner space, and you recognize your corner space because it has got chain 2 in there. You can also mark your corner spaces with a stitch marker so you know where they are, and into the corner spaces we're always creating a new corner. So we're going to do a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches, chain 2, and another cluster of 3 double crochet stitches, and that's our new corner made. And the next one will be the side again, so we don't want to add anything there, we want to keep this bit straight, so we're just going to do 3 double crochet stitches, no chains anywhere in between, just straight into that space. And then moving on to the next corner, we're going to do 3 double crochet stitches, chain 2, and 3 double crochet stitches to create the new corner space for the next round. And this is what you will be doing now. So in between all of your 6 corners, you will have a space where you need to just make 3 double crochet stitches on their own without no chains in between, and that's how your work will grow. You will create these sides in between the corners, and you will always have 6 corners, but your sides will grow as your work grows. So you can pause your video here and meet me back when you get to the end of this round. And now we're back to where you started from, and you have got this half a corner made. So we need to add another set of 3 double crochet stitches into that space where you started from. Once you have done that, we're going to join with a half a double crochet to the top of that stacked single, or whichever one you started, to start your round off. And your work should be a little bit floppy by now, so let's check if we have done it correctly. You should be able to now fold the piece together in the corners, and you will see how it will start creating half of your cardigan, a sleeve and the side of the body. So it shouldn't lie flat, it should have like this little bit of a kink in it already after 3 rounds. So if that is not the case, you have gone wrong somewhere. So it's good to check it before you've gone too far. You should have 90-degree corners and straight sides in between your corners. Now let's start with the next round, and again we're starting with a stacked single crochet stitch and 2 double crochets into that first space, and that is the half of the first corner. And as you can see, next corner is now a little bit further away, so in between we have to make 2 stitches which are just 3 double crochet clusters with no chains, anything in between them. So make the one of these into the first space, and then another one into the next space, just to keep their sides straight. And then once you have done those 2, we're going to move into the corner and create a new corner space. So that is 3 double crochet stitches, chain 2, and another 3 double crochet stitches, all into that same space. So that's the chain 2 space from the round below. And as you keep working in between those corners, you're just doing a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches, and keep going like this until you have got all the way around. Again, when you get to the end, we have made this cluster of 3 just to finish off this corner, and half a double crochet to join that end bit to the beginning of your work. And this is how you will be working your rounds now. You're just going to start with a half a corner, work all the way around, and then finish that corner, and then join the 2 ends together with a half a double crochet. And in between your corners in each round you will gain an extra space for the side stitches, so the side clusters, which are just 3 double crochet stitches into the space. So that space hasn't got a chain, it's just space between the clusters, if that makes sense. And in the corners you'll have your chain 2 space, so you'll be creating a new corner into each corner. And occasionally you can just check that your work still folds properly. And because this is made to measure, and you can work with any type of yarn, you have to measure your work occasionally just to make sure that you're not doing too many rounds. So you want to get first to the measurement of your arm depth, which is the widest part of your arm, so to make sure that your arm goes through your cardigan sleeve. And that is the purple arrow on the picture to the left. You can either measure it by lying your work flat and measuring across, so that would be exact round of your arm, or just get the half measurement of your work folded together like on a little photo. And now we're going to join the top of the arm together. I'm going to use join as you go method, so there'll be no sewing when you're making this cardigan. Let's go back to where we would normally start our new round, but we will be making in a row just for this bit. So starting again with your half a corner and the beginning cluster the same way as you have been doing. So I'm starting mine with a stacked single crochet followed by 2 double crochet stitches into this first corner space. And once you have done that, you can just keep going into this side spaces, making clusters or 3 double crochet stitches into each space, just like you've done before, but just stop when you get to the next corner, because we will be doing something slightly different when we get there. Now, working into the next corner, we are not going to do a full corner stitch like we have been doing when we're working in a round, because we want to join the top of the sleeve. We're only doing half of the corner, and then we have to fold our sleeve so that we can start joining it together. So make sure you're grabbing the correct ends and making the fold, and just check before you start joining them. It's always best to check before you start joining. It's a bit difficult to see on the video, but if you look at the little picture in the corner, you'll see that this is what your fold should look like, and you are going to join the top edge of this fold together. So let's get back into that corner space where we left our work, and to join the other side of this sleeve together, we're just going to turn your work around, and we're now going to make a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches into this opposite side into the corner space. So just make straight away a cluster of 3, no chains in between. And now we're going to slip stitch in between these 2 cluster stitches on the opposite side of your work, and that is going to join these 2 sides together. And then go and make another 3 double crochet stitch cluster now into the next space on the side that you're working on, and then again we're going to find the next space on the opposite side and slip stitch into that stitch. And this is what you call a join as you go crochet, so there is no sewing needed to join, and it's almost like a seamless join. You just slip stitch into the opposite side and making a new cluster to the side which you are working into, so the side that what's facing you, you're making these clusters, and then you're joining them with a slip stitch to the opposite one. The only thing you have to watch here is that you go into the correct spaces, especially when you're making your slip stitches, because it's sometimes a bit hard to tell where your next stitch should go. Keep working like this all the way to the end, joining the 2 sides together, and when you get to the corner, we're going to work 3 double crochet stitches into that last space, which is your original corner. And you can now check how this join looks. You have joined 2 sides of your sleeve together at the top, and now we're joining to the top of that stacked single crochet stitch. Just make a slip stitch into that stitch, and that finishes your joining this sleeve. And the next thing we're going to do now is extend our sleeves, because at the moment they are quite short. Unless you want to keep your short sleeve cardigan, you can now start working in a round again. We're going to slip stitch in between these 2 clusters to get to the correct space to start our round, and then starting again with a stacked single crochet followed by 2 double crochet stitches. There you go, that's our first cluster, and then you're just going to work all the way around making these cluster stitches. Because you're not working into any of the corners, you're just working in a big circle or little circle. You don't need any chains in between any of the clusters. You just keep going all the way around, making 3 double crochet stitches into each space in round below. When you get to the end, we're going to join this round by slip stitching to the top of your stacked single crochet stitch. And now we need to make sure that we start the next round in the next corner. So let's make 2 more slip stitches to the top of these 2 double crochets, and then slip stitch into the next space between the clusters, and we can start our next round here. So we start again with a stacked single crochet stitch followed by 2 double crochet stitches, making our first cluster, and then obviously working this all the way around again. So you can just keep working your sleeves straight, but that means that you will end up with a very wide sleeve, because your arms at the top where you measured them to get your arm depth is a lot wider when you get closer to your wrists. So you might want to taper your sleeves the way I did. That gives you a narrower fitted sleeve, and to do that we're going to have to make a few decrease stitches along the way. So I did my decrease stitches every 4th round, and to make sure that your decreases won't show, I would do them to the opposite way to where your join is, because that would be underside of your sleeve when you're wearing your cardigan. So let's just get to that point first. We started around like before with a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches, and we'll keep working until we get roughly to the opposite side, and then I'll show you how to do a decrease stitch. It's really depending on what type of yarn you're using, how often you want to do your decreases. Like I said, I did mine every 4th round of my sleeve, and that seemed to work well for my chunky cardigan. But you have to see, if you're working with something a lot thinner, you might want to do less decreases or more decreases. So we are now in the right place where we want to do a decrease stitch, and what we're going to do is make these next two spaces into one. So we're going to work the next cluster over the 2 spaces. We start with a double crochet into the first space, then we're going to skip a stitch and make a double crochet decrease over the next 2 double crochet stitches. So let's do this together. Yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, then yarn around your hook, pull through 2, then yarn over again, go into the next stitch, and then pull up a loop, and then yarn around your hook, pull through 2 loops, and then yarn around your hook, pull through all 3 on your hook, and that's your double crochet decrease. And now we're going to make another double crochet into the next space. And as you can see now, we have made a cluster. Instead of doing 2 clusters over these 2 spaces, we have just done 1 cluster over the 2 spaces, and we will now carry on working around like we did before, just going into the next space, making a cluster, keep going, and I will show you in the next round, when you get to that decrease stitch, how you work around it. It will just become a normal cluster stitch, even though it technically has 4 double crochet stitches instead of the usual 3 what we have. Now let's join this round together and slip stitch to the space where we can start our next round. And then we start in our next round just like we did before, making clusters into each space, and we won't be long until we get to that funky decrease stitch what you made. So we're nearly there, keep going. Yeah, here it is. So now we have to work either side of this decrease stitch we made. So that counts as one cluster. So there's a space just before it, and you make your normal cluster of 3 double crochet stitches into this space, and then you hop into the next space and make your cluster of 3 double crochet stitches into this space. And let me just show you what your work looks like. There you go, this is your decrease, but it kind of gets all worked into your work and you won't even notice it by the time you're wearing your cardigan. Also because you're making it underside of your sleeve, it won't be noticeable at all. And do this every 4th row, I would say, but just like I said before, depending on what yarn you're using, maybe you might want to do it more often or less often, and it also depends how wide you want your sleeves to be or how narrow. So this pattern is very adjustable to what you want, to your own measurements. I would just test that occasionally. You would just put your arm through the sleeve and just check it for size and fit, so that you know if you need to adjust your decreases in any way. But also don't forget that when you get to the end of making your sleeve, you will do a cuff as well. So that brings the whole thing together a little bit as well. So it's not going to be too important to get your sleeves so narrow at the edges before you get to that end. So this is what it will look like, and now we got to the 4th round again, ready to do our next decrease stitch. Go into the first space, make a double crochet, and then skip that double crochet that's kind of hidden by that stitch anyway, and go and do your double crochet 2 together or double crochet decrease over the next double crochet stitches, and then make another double crochet into the space just after, and kind of stagger these a little bit so they won't be right on the top of each other, but they are still on the side of your sleeve. And now you can just pause your video and keep going until your sleeve is long enough so that you can just add a cuff to your sleeve. This is what my sleeve looks like now. I'm happy with the length of it, and I am ready to add a cuff. So let's go and do this. So in order to add your ribbon cuff to your work, I would say let's do a round of just single crochet stitches, because they will be a lot easier to work into when you're doing your cuff. So I'm making 1 single crochet on the top of each double crochet stitch all the way around your work. Just keep going, making 1 single crochet into each double crochet stitch, and you'll have a nice base for your ribbon to go in. When you get to the end of this single crochet round, just join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet you made, and now we can do your ribbon. So you can chain any amount of chains you want. It just depends how long you want your ribbon part of your sleeve to be, and always skip the first chain from your hook and start making single crochet stitches down your chain, starting from the second chain from your hook, keep going until you reach back to where your base round of single crochets is. So it's a little bit fiddly because you've got a big chunk of work you attach to, but just adjust the way your work is in front of you. And now you've done your single crochet stitches, we're going to attach this to the base with a slip stitch. So find your next stitch, not the one that you already worked into, but the one next to it, slip stitch into that one, and then slip stitch into the following stitch as well. So 2 slip stitches, then turn your work, and we're going to work back along these stitches. Make sure you're not going into the slip stitches what you made, but start from where your first single crochet starts and go into the back loop of that stitch only, not the both loops but just the back one. So you got the front one and the back one, and just go through the back one and keep going, making single crochet stitches into each back loop until you just have one more stitch left to work into. So regardless how many you made in the beginning, you leave that one and make a normal single crochet through both legs of your stitch into that last stitch. I like doing that because it gives a nicer edge to your sleeves, but if you really want to, you can make another back loop single crochet stitch there. And then when you turn your work again, I would make the first one a full single crochet and then carry on doing the back loop single crochet stitches along this strip. So go into the back loop and make a single crochet, and just like that, keep going. So you're just working this ribbon backwards and forwards and attaching it to your end of your sleeve as you work. So again, there is no sewing involved at all. So when you get towards the end of this row, it gets a little bit tricky to find your stitches. Just pull apart a little bit so you can see your next space where you need to work into a little bit better. Make your 2 slip stitches, and then again we're doing the same thing. Turn your work, skip the slip stitches and start working into the back loops of your single crochet stitches. And you probably got what you got to do now. Go into back loops until you get to the end where it's just one left, and do a normal standard one into that one. And this is what you're doing now all the way around. You're going just backwards and forwards, attaching that ribbon to the end of your sleeves. And now we are nearly at the place where we can join this little bit of ribbon together. So let's just do this final row of back loop single crochet stitches and attach this to the base, but you only have one stitch here, so you can go just underneath where you first started, and then fold your 2 sides off. So the first would be a chain, and then the final row of your ribbon, fold them together and start working through the chain stitch and the very last row. Just make sure that you're working together the correct stitches, and just make a single crochet stitch through the chain and through the full stitch of the last row of this ribbon. Just take your time, make sure you're matching your stitches correctly so you don't have a funny edge at the end of your work, and attach them together just simply by making another row of single crochet stitches through both sides. And you'll see that when you get to the end, you have now created another sort of a ridge to your ribbon work so it all matches up and it's not going to look strange or out of place at all. And when you get to the end now, you can just fasten off and cut your yarn. This is what my sleeve looks like now. Now, as you can see, your part of what makes the body of your cardigan is still way too small for any person to fit into it. So you're gonna now work all around this outer edge to create more length and depth for your cardigan. You can start in either of the two corners. You only have two corners now instead of 6 like you did before. And we'll attach our yarn to one of the corners. You can do it in various ways. So you can just attach it with a little knot and start with chain 3 or your stacked single crochet. I'd like to do mine with standing double crochet at this point. So I'll show you how to do that, just in case you want to try that. So make a slip knot and put your hook through this slip knot. And you're now going to do your yarn over without your hook being attached to anything or your yarn being attached to anything. And then go into that space, pull up a loop, and then you're ready to do your double crochet stitch like normal. Yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is your standing double crochet stitch, and it looks just like a normal double crochet stitch to me. And then we're going to carry on doing your 2 double crochet stitches to create that first cluster, and then just like before you're going to make the cluster of double crochet stitches into each space, and keep doing this until you get to the next corner space. In a corner space, you're going to do your usual corner increase, which is 3 double crochet stitches. So let's do these first. 1, 2, and 3. And then make your chain 2 and make another 3 double crochet stitches into the same space. And that's your corner, just like before. And now keep going, working the 3 double crochet clusters, because you only got sides left now. You don't have any more corners to add until you get back to where you started from, where your original first corner will be. When you get to the bit where your sleeve top is joined, just make an additional cluster in between these joins, and this is just going to be obviously for the first round. As you keep working, this will just become regular cluster side. So let's keep going, and let's get back to where you started your corner with your standing double crochet stitch. And now we're back here, and we just have to finish our corner just like we did before. So make your 3 double crochet stitches here, and we're going to do a half a double crochet to the top of that first double crochet stitch. And now we can just start our work the usual way, with a stacked single crochet stitch or chain 3 or standing double crochet. It all depends what you have been using before or what you like doing. And start again with just a half corner, and then carry on until you get to your other corner space and add an actual corner increase there with 3 doubles, followed by 2 chains, followed by 3 doubles. You keep working until your work measures the around the body measurement to what you're looking for. so that it fits you perfectly. In this picture it's the white arrow, and you can just lie your work flat and measure it across, or you can fold it into the half cardigan shape and then just measure it as a half of this length. You just have to make sure that you remember that you're doing the other side as well, obviously, so this will add to their measurement. And if you think you have got that, you can now fasten off side 1, and we will start working on the side 2, and it's exactly the same as the side 1. So once you've made the second side, we can now add the 2 sides together. So this time don't fasten off in the final corner, because you can start working from the same corner to add these 2 sides together. But before we commit in to joining the sides together, which will become the back of the cardigan, I would highly recommend that you add stitch markers to where your join will be and try your work on, just to make sure that you have got the perfect fit to what you're looking for. It's easier to measure before, and once you tried it on, you can then adjust to see if you need it to be a little bit bigger or smaller. This will help you to decide where to end your joining as well when you're joining these 2 sides together. So you can remove all the other stitch markers now and just leave in the final one where you want your join to end. And we are doing this join exactly the same way as we did the join for the sleeves. So we are starting working on one side of your cardigan, so that's why I said don't fasten off, because you can just carry on working from where your hook already was, and then make a half a corner and start making your clusters along this side. So another thing to mention is when you're trying your cardigan on with the stitch markers in, you will see that they leave a little bit of a gap, but that doesn't really matter, because when you join in you'll still add in 2 more rows. So working up to that marker, you can now turn your work around so that you will be working on the other side, and we're making the clusters to the opposite side and then joining them with a slip stitch to the side that you already have worked on. So make sure your setup is correct before you start, and that's why it's good now that we got the marker in the correct stitch where we need to work. So we don't have to worry about it not matching up when we get to the end. So I've done that first cluster, and then we need to find that space where we want to make a slip stitch to join the opposite side. That's the first one done, and then we will work into the next space, making your 3 double crochet cluster before then joining it to the opposite side with a slip stitch. And keep going, joining the 2 sides together to create your cardigan. When you get to the end, we are going to slip stitch to that top of that stacking single crochet stitch to join. There you go, and that will end this part of join as you go for the back of your work. And we're going to fasten off here and cut your yarn. This is what your work will look like now. We can get rid of these stitch markers because they're not really doing anything anymore. And another thing you may want to do now is add a little bit of a length to your cardigan, because this one at the moment it's quite a short one. So we can now start working at the bottom, along the bottom edge, to add length to make it longer, or as long as you want it to be, it doesn't matter. You just start from one of the corners, and again I'd like to attach my yarn with a standing double crochet stitch. You can use chain free method if you want, or a stacked single crochet, it's up to you. So we're going to make a cluster into the corner, and then going to work along this edge. We're just extending it lengthwise now. We're not making it any wider, we're just making it longer. So we're just working along the bottom edge, and that obviously means that we will be working in rows instead of working in rounds. You're just going backwards and forwards. You might be a bit worried because some of your stitches will be on the wrong side. It doesn't really matter, you won't really see it that much. So when you get to that bit where you just finished your join, just make an additional cluster in between this join space. Just make 3 double crochet stitches in there, and then after you've done that you can just move on and carry on making your double crochet stitches into each space, just going along this bottom edge. And then you get to the end of this row, we're going to do another cluster of 3 double crochet stitches just to finish off. And at the beginning of the new row we are going to do something slightly different. So instead of doing another cluster, because it will start making your work a little bit wider, you just make your stacked single crochet stitch where you are, and then move straight into that space between the next 2 clusters, and make a 3 double crochet stitch cluster in there. So you, at the beginning of your work of that round, you will just have 1 double crochet instead of 3, because you don't want to flare out at the bottom of your cardigan. And then keep going all the way along the bottom edge again until you get to the opposite side. And once you're there, let's finish off this last double crochet cluster. And now you can see that you have the last cluster left, and you will make a double crochet to the final stitch. So it's not going to be obviously another cluster there, it's just a 1 double crochet. And now we're back to the way we always do things, where we start with a stacked single followed by 2 doubles. So this row will have an actual cluster in the front and at the beginning, and that's how you will be creating this length for the cardigan, that you make in 1 row, which is kind of like a full row of clusters, and the next row following will be made with just a 1 double crochet at the end and at the beginning of the row. And like I said, you can make your work as long as you want. This is how long I made mine. And to finish off, I'm going to show you how to make a nice border for your cardigan. First, I'm going to make a base round of just single crochet stitches. So we're going to do chain 1 and work 2 single crochets into each of these double crochet stitches, which are like sideways double crochet stitches, because we're working along the edge and the stitches are not right way up yet. So just make 2 single crochets along this beginning part of the edge, and soon you'll see that you're coming to the point where you have your normal standard double crochet stitches, and then you can start making one single crochet stitch into top of each double crochet stitch. And you will be working now all the way around, just doing a single crochet into each stitch. And when you get to your corners, I always add an extra stitch. So let's do these two singles which are going on the side of that double crochet, and then because this is a corner space, I will now add another stitch into the corner before I turn my work, and then start making your single crochet stitches on top of these double crochet stitches, because that's now the bottom edge of your cardigan, and you can see that there are normal stitches again to work into. And then when you get all the way around to the end, you can join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch you made. But again, I'll add just an extra single crochet just to make this corner a little bit better, I guess, just to create a little bit of a tip at the corner. And for the final round, we're going to chain one and then slip stitch into the next stitch, and then chain one again and slip stitch, chain one, slip stitch, and you have all this nice single crochet stitches to work into, and that round should create this beautiful edging to your cardigan. Of course, you can make a bottom ribbon if you prefer, or you can join the two sides together in the front as well and make a sweater or a jumper instead of an open cardigan, and you can make a neckline ribbon. There are so many ways you can make this pattern to work for you. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I can't wait to see your versions. See you in the next one. Bye.